Okay, so in a previous video I showed you how to take some tomatoes and process them down to get ready for a can that you can make into a sauce, a juice, a paste, or you can even make it into a tomato paste. So now I'm going to show you how to take this reduced. We didn't reduce, it's kind of between a juice right now and a sauce, so we're going to make spaghetti sauce. So this is what the start of the juice looks like, so we're going to set it on the stove and reduce it, and then after it's reduced we will show you what it looks like. Okay, so while we're reducing the tomato juice to a sauce, I wanted to take just about a half a bag of these little baby carrots, or about 3 regular sized carrots, and chop them up real fine, and then we're going to flash sear them in a pan with a little olive oil and put them in this tomato sauce to reduce, because I don't want necessarily when we're eating it to taste the chunks of the carrots, but we want the flavor and the vitamins in it. So I'll get it ground up, and then I'll show you what it looks like after I flash seared it. Okay, here's what the carrots look like after I flash seared them. Again, I don't want them completely cooking in the pan, not that that's going to matter much, because I want them to be pretty much dissolved or to mush by the time I add most of the other vegetables. So we just wanted to get these little sear marks on them so we can add that little extra flavor. So we will add these to the sauce as it reduces, and then we will show you the next step. So we just sauteed the carrots real quick. So now I have sauteed 4 just regular white mushrooms, and I chopped them up in the food processor so they're minced too. And then I rough chopped or coarsely chopped some onions and just seared them a little bit. So I don't really care again if these dissolve, because they're going to just turn into more of the flavor of the juice, so the sauce. So I'm going to add these real quick, and I'm searing those in olive oil is the kind of oil that I'm using. So now these onions I'm just going to rough cut, so that later I will sear them, and I want them to be in larger chunks, because I'm going to make this to be like a chunky vegetable spaghetti sauce. So I don't want them real fine, I want them to be in pretty good chunks. So I'm cutting up the onions, and then at the end I will flash sear larger chunks of onions and throw those in. I don't want to, of course, because mushrooms can dissolve pretty quickly, especially after they're going to be canned. So we don't want them to get too mushy. We want them to have a little bit of consistency, which the searing will help too. It'll caramelize so it don't break them down as quickly when they're processed. So we'll get these chopped up, we'll get the zucchini chopped up, and then we'll get the mushrooms all chopped up, and then we'll sear those, and we will show you as the sauce gets thicker. And the next step. Okay, so here's the sauce so far. It's getting thicker. Kind of see the stuff that we already put in, the mushrooms and the carrots and the onions are kind of just floating around there, dissolving. That's what we want. And then this is our mushrooms that we're going to sear quickly. So you can see they're really separated. Mushrooms do not sear well unless they are separated. You can see this brown on the bottom here. That is what we're wanting. So we want those on both sides of each mushroom. So it's very, very important to keep the mushrooms separated so that they have the opportunity to evaporate all that water adequately, so that they brown just like that one right there. Okay, so thanks. So I will show you the next step here in just a few minutes. Okay, I just wanted to show you again the caramelization of the mushrooms. So you want to, again, make sure that you have this brown, because this keeps the texture in the sauce, but it also adds a really good flavor to your sauce. So we will continue to let this to reduce, and then we will set these aside. We don't want to add them right now, otherwise they will just disintegrate in the liquid. I just wanted to get them sauteed so that they would be ready when they need to be added. And I was going to use fresh mushrooms, but the 4 that I found earlier that is we processed to put in there, was all evidently we had left, so I had to use a jar full. So okay, I just took the mushrooms out of the pan, so I have a little bit of oil still left in the pan. So I wanted to add, while the pan was still a little warm, add my spices. So I have some dried garlic here. So I have some just a couple dashes of tarragon, about a teaspoon of Italian seasoning, about half or a quarter teaspoon of basil, and then just about a half a teaspoon of thyme. So we are I'll just kind of set this back on the stove and just kind of let it warm up with the oil. I don't want to saute it because that will burn it, but I just want it to be able to infuse together a little bit in the pan with the oil. Allow it to just kind of rehydrate, and then that'll bring the flavors out a little bit better. Kind of blooming it, I think is what it's called. So that'll rehydrate that garlic, rehydrate all the herbs. So we'll let these set a little bit in the oil and kind of infuse, and then we will be back with the next cut. So the sauce is reduced down to about, I don't know, 75% less than it was, I'd say. So now we're going to sear our vegetables in a saucepan and then put them in the broth. I'll show you what that looks like here in just a second. Okay, so now we removed it from the heat and it's still hot, but now we're gonna, I quick seared the onions in that oil and herb mixture that I made earlier that I let just stay a little warm, so I'm just gonna throw that in. Now we're gonna saute the zucchini, and I'll show you what that, and we're going to dump in the mushrooms. Okay, so get that kind of stirred up, and then we'll put in the zucchini here in just a second, and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so I just, in a dry pan, just seared the zucchini enough. Again, I don't want to cook this a whole lot because then I don't want it to turn to mush. So I'm just going to add that now. We're just going to let this set for a minute to just let the flavors kind of infuse, and then we're going to taste it and season it. Now, one thing I do add to all my sauces is seaweed powder. It adds iodine and some nutrients, some trace minerals, but it also is like a natural MSG. It kind of blends flavors and is a flavor enhancer. So I add seaweed to all my broths and sauces. So and it's good for you. So we're going to let this just sit here a little bit, let the squash kind of infuse its flavor, the mushrooms, the onions, and then we will taste it. I'm going to add a little more garlic, salt. And that's why I don't add a lot of garlic or salt in the beginning, because I want to be able to taste it at the end to make sure that it is salty enough. But I don't want it. You can always add extra salt, but you can't always take it away. So I'll just show you what it looks like here in just a little bit. Okay. So this is kind of what it looks like now. We let it set a little bit. I tasted it after a little bit, and I added a little sugar just to kind of blend out the acidity of the tomatoes. These are not, modified variety tomatoes. These are heirloom varieties, so they're a little bit more acidic. So I was able just to thin it out a little bit with some sugar. So now I will just put it in jars, and then I've got my jars sterilized here. So I'm going to fill those up to about an inch headspace, and then get them into boiled water. So I'll get them jarred up here real quick, and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so we used our jar, the funnel. Funneled them in, made 4 quarts here. So I've got my water heating up. Took a rag and cleaned off the lip of the jar before putting on the warmed seals. So we're just going to lift them over now into the hot water. And then the water will cover it about an inch over the top of the jar, and then we'll boil it for 45 minutes, 35 to 45 minutes. It's recommended around 40, so I usually do it a little bit longer just to be safe. So we'll do that, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. Okay, so they have now been in the water bath for about 40 minutes, and they are starting to pop. Just make sure that the seal's on really good. But I didn't, of course, add any vinegar, so my jars are getting a little cloudy. So that is my version of canning spaghetti sauce. So please like and subscribe, and let me know how your spaghetti sauce works out, or if you have a recipe that you really enjoy. So I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next video.